First player on the ratings is Kelleher, who gets a 8 out of 10. Made a really strong save down to his right soon after the Reds took the lead, then an even better stop to deny Armstrong from the penalty spot. Nothing he could do to prevent the rebound going in, but even got something to that. Very unfortunate. Next is Bradley, who gets a 7 out of 10. Booked for an early trip on Lalana, but defended his side really well in one-on-one situations thereafter to ensure it wasn't an issue. Neat in the tackle rather than forceful, though of course was upfield against a few counterattacks at times. Nature of the role, rather than him being missing. Got better in terms of the supply line as the match went on and got forward to good effect while we were chasing. Next up is Connate, who gets a 5 out of 10. Like Bradley, was shown a yellow in the opening stages, which was a sign of things to come. Has been excellent this season, but this was a shocker for an hour. Bad passing, failing to make challenges, not stopping runners, and generally poor levels of everything. Next up is Van Dijk, who gets 6 out of 10. Cost the goal, effectively, with a driving run out of defense which saw him lose the ball and be out of position as a result. Symptomatic of a super sloppy first half from those in the back line. Second half he was much more tuned in, aggressive in his positional play, and often being the counter-press 20 yards higher upfield than normal to win back the ball and keep Saints pegged back. Next up is Robertson, who gets a 6 out of 10. Had got forward to great effect a few times and put over a couple of dangerous crosses, but gave away a penalty with such a poorly timed tackle. A performance of 2 halves for Robbo. Good on the overlap, not great at all defensively. Next up is Gravenberch, who gets a 8 out of 10. A middling first half showing, mixing some nice touches with losing challenges in the middle of the park. Has to do a bit better as a top-tier no 6 for the dibbling run which led to the penalty, too. Sent a good ball from deep through to assist Sulla, then lofted a close-range strike over the bar. Next up is Jones, who gets 6 out of 10. Started in a deeper role and was his typical assured self in possession, but didn't really find much in the way of defense-splitting passes or late runs into dangerous areas higher upfield. Solid, unspectacular, subbed. Next up is Soboslai, who gets a 7 out of 10. His willingness to close down Saints players passing out from the back was important and resulted in him scoring a nice left-footed shot. Quieter after the break when it was more about angles and possession and timing of runs. He seems to thrive most in the chaos, not the control. Next up is man of the match Sulla, who gets a 8 out of 10. After the break, he was more his usual self in creating chances and tried to dribble past the whole defense at one stage. Scored himself thanks to a very questionable run out by the keeper. Then his cross led to a penalty which he tucked away himself. Thereafter missed a decent shooting chance and blammed another onto the post in search of his hat-trick. Next up is Nunez, who gets a 5 out of 10. Achieved absolutely nothing in a first half of minimal industry, and certainly no hold-up, link play, or goal threat. Finally impacted after the hour mark to burst behind the defense and cross well for Diaz. But let's be honest, in a game like this you want your no 9 to plunder chances, shots, hopefully a goal, from next to nothing, just by positional play and instinct. Next up is Gakpo, who gets 6 out of 10. Few decent darting runs infield and one really good low cross, but also surely had to score a left-footed rebound instead of checking inside onto his right foot soon after Saints' equalizer. Wasn't tremendous, but it was still a surprise he was subbed off, first given performances elsewhere. Now on to the subs. First up is Diaz, who gets a 7 out of 10. Could have scored within seconds, but missed a cross. A bit more direct than Gakpo, and crossed for one of Sulla's chances. Next up is McAllister, who gets a 7 out of 10. Tried pretty hard to split the defense, which wasn't always the required approach, but added energy and intent. Now on to Endo, who gets a 7 out of 10. On to win back the ball and shut things down. Did both. Lastly on to Slot, who gets a 7 out of 10. The number of slow and sloppy starts, especially on the road, is a definite concern for Liverpool this season, despite the points tally. Slot didn't wait too long to change matters after the restart at least, though some might suggest it was a pair of routine rather than game-changing subs, like for like and not overly adventurous. The Reds got away with it this time, and Slot's job now is to minimize the times these performances happen.